Thank you for joining us for this look at the best original reporting from KPBS News this week. I'm Maya Trabulsi. And coming up, San Diego's future doctors. MG Perez meets med school students who are chasing their dream during a pandemic. More than a game, Lincoln High School decides not to play this weekend in protest over racist social media posts from an opposing team. And one of our most popular stories this week, the new Condor chick at the San Diego Zoo, that's a breakthrough in reproduction. We start with progress in President Biden's push to revamp the nation's infrastructure and deal with the effects of climate change. Votes are expected in the coming days on two big spending plans after months of negotiations. KPBS reporter Kitty Alvarado caught up with one of San Diego's Congress members whose vote is needed to get it passed.
There's been a lot of back and forth on President Biden's domestic policy plan that includes infrastructure spending and a $1.75 trillion social agenda. Congressman Scott Peters, who represents the 52nd District, says this is a big task and he doesn't expect a bill to be finalized today or tomorrow.
It's historic, and I wouldn't have expected this to be easy or quick. I think it's going to take a lot of give and take. I think it should take a lot of give and take. This is a lot of money we're investing. We should do it right.
The revised plan eliminates several items, including free community college and paid family leave, which is already offered by the state of California. But Peters says a federal leave plan would not be redundant.
I think California would still benefit from it because I think it could take some of the pressure off of our own pocketbooks if the federal government were supporting it.
Also out, lifting the $10,000 cap on deductions for state and local taxes, known as SALT. Peters says this is big for Californians who pay higher state and local tax bills.
As California's invested in its future, it's invested, investments cost money. That's why we have higher taxes. And the system's always been there to abate that for on your federal tax payments. And since the beginning of the income tax. So we think we've been singled out unfairly with a few other states. We'd like to get that benefit back.
Despite the emphasis on the tug of war and what's in and out, Peters is optimistic.
I think we're going to come out of it with something really, really great and something we could be proud of and as Americans and as a Congress.
Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News.
A big pitch for that spending is the ongoing pandemic. Case trends continue to move in the right direction, but there are parts of our community that are falling behind in getting vaccines. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne shows us some of the face-to-face work happening to improve those numbers.
This is Daisy Merino. She spent her morning going door to door, giving information on COVID vaccines and testing centers.
Today we're doing canvassing for vaccination outreach.
Merino is one of the coordinators for Poder Popular, or Popular Power. They are a group run by Vista Community Clinic, informing the community of health resources available in North County.
Es con respecto a la vacuna contra el COVID-19.
Every week, she meets with volunteers in different neighborhoods to give information on COVID vaccines and local testing centers.
Poder Popular leaders have been really fundamental in ensuring that the information that community members receive, is trusted. We always think of them as the trusted messengers of the community, and a lot of the material that we distribute goes through their, let's say, kind of like their approval first.
A report by the San Diego Union Tribune showed that Latinos in North County are falling behind in getting vaccinated. Poder Popular is working to get more Latinos in North County vaccinated. But Merino says some of the Latinos she has encountered are still hesitant over the vaccine.
Sometimes the people that we have encountered are open to receive the information. A lot of the times they do have questions regarding, some of the myths that they have heard, such as infertility, right? Is this going to cause me infertility? I've heard this from a friend. So we always try to have at hand a flyer, that breaks down or that debunks some of these myths that they might have heard.
The volunteers say they've heard all kinds of myths, have gotten called names, or sometimes go ignored. But the group says the insults won't stop them and they will continue their efforts. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
Becoming a doctor is hard enough without the obstacles of a pandemic. Those who are in med school know they're on this journey during a difficult and historic time. KPBS education reporter MG Perez met some of the students who are overcoming some huge obstacles.
This is the sound of doctors practicing medicine. At least a dozen of them working with support staff and experienced colleagues.
The patient
Some of these doctors are second-year students from the UC San Diego Medical School. The classroom on this particular Wednesday evening is the free clinic housed in rooms and an auditorium at Pacific Beach United Methodist Church. Justine Panion is the designated clinic general manager. She's a second-year medical student who survived her first-year program, gripped in the chaos of COVID-19.
It was just really inspiring seeing everybody really unite in order to address this pandemic. It really showed me that you didn't have to be directly in the front lines in order to fight the pandemic.
Hand and wrist. Negative.
Dr. Natalie Rodriguez is the UCSD Associate Clinical Professor and mentor to these students. She was a young medical student herself when she started volunteering at the free clinic 20 years ago. 13 years ago, she became the attending physician who now beams with pride when talking about her students.
They bring their enthusiasm, their compassion, their passion, their innovation, especially this past year with COVID.
This church building provides a lifeline of health care for those who need it the most. It is a free clinic, but the quality of care is professional and would not be possible without the backbone of medical students who show up every week to run it.
The only time Justin was ever in the hospital was for his birth.
Dr. Rodriguez and her students are back to in-person classes on the UCSD campus this fall after a year of distance learning, the critical first year of medical school.
No strabismus that I can see.
Morgan is happy to finally be in person and in community with her other classmates who also trudged through a year of Zoom classes. Morgan preferred to give only her first name as she shared personal memories and her experience, like the first day of medical school at home.
Our education was, some people would say, disrupted. We value all of the clinical work that we have just so much. It's like working at the free clinic, getting to see a patient, getting to do a physical. It does just make you appreciate the opportunities that you have when you understand that they could be taken away and that they could have been very different.
Despite the challenge, second-year student Urvi Gupta never gave up hope. After spending the first critical year of medical school in distance learning, she also dealt with the devastation caused by COVID-19 in her family's home country of India. If anything, she says the experience will make her a better doctor.
No matter what the media and what the platform, our first priority is always just making the patients feel comfortable and making sure we're providing excellent care. And so I think this past year has shown us that no matter what the situation that we're put in, we can do that.
Looking for things that are more concerning.
The COVID shutdown did not stop the Wednesday weekly free clinic in Pacific Beach. It did cut the staff to just a handful of doctors who didn't see patients in person, but instead coordinated drive-by drop-off delivery of medication, online consultations, and vaccine education sessions when the vaccines became available. And these then first-year students also encountered a sudden lesson in social justice.
We had just come off of the Black Lives Matter protests, and it really just exploded this entire introspection into racial injustice and just health equity.
In fact, the racial divide triggered in 2020 inspired the creation of a new enhanced health equity curriculum at the UCSD Medical School, engaging students in how to treat people of different beliefs and backgrounds. Dr. Rodriguez could not be more proud of their accomplishments.
It just gives me so much hope for the future of medicine, knowing that they're going to go out there and make such a difference in the world and in healthcare.
That's some good medicine we can all use. MG Perez, KPBS News.
KPBS continues to stay on top of all the latest COVID-19 numbers, trends, and vaccine news. We have a wealth of resources at kpbs.org. From the homepage, find the drop-down next to the news section and click Tracking COVID-19. And here are some of the most read stories this week by our online audience, starting with a first for the San Diego Zoo. Zookeepers say a couple of their condor chicks were reproduced without the help of a male. We'll have that story from Eric Anderson a little bit later. Also, a lot of people listened to the special on KPBS Midday Edition episode all about San Diego's housing crisis. And a story with a lot of interest in North County, where a recall effort is underway against Poway's mayor. One North County school, Cathedral Catholic, won't be playing its scheduled football game. That's because its opponent says the school hasn't done enough to deal with racist social media posts from Cathedral players. KPBS race and equity reporter Christina Kim explains the decision and the support it's getting.
I think in the end, we'll all be able to move forward and we'll work towards it, but you can't put a timeline on healing.
That's Lincoln coach David Dunn talking to over 60 community members, many of them local school coaches, at the bi-weekly Coaches for Racial Equality meeting. He's explaining his decision to not play against Cathedral High School this coming Friday. During the hour-long meeting on Wednesday night, Coach Dunn said he looks forward to working with Cathedral coach Sean Doyle on repairing the harm that was done. And he acknowledged that Cathedral players and staff have reached out. But Coach Dunn says that so far, restorative efforts haven't felt genuine, and the healing process is far from over.
When we opened up early into this restorative circle, we didn't come out of it the way that we should have. And I know it takes more and more. And like I said, we as a coaching staff in the community here were very shaken by it. It opened up some old wounds, some things from a long time ago.
Coach Dunn says the process made him remember being told as a 9-year-old black athlete that he might be called names and to deal with it. He doesn't want to keep repeating that message to his players.
We've grown to accept and just continue on, but it's not okay. That don't make it okay. So I wanted to just continue to raise the awareness of things that are taking place, and we all got to do better. I'm not saying that Lincoln's perfect. I'm not saying that Cathedral's imperfect. We're all imperfect.
The Coaches for Racial Equality meetings began last year during the height of the racial justice protests. Joining the coaches at Wednesday's meeting were parents of Cathedral High School athletes. Chris Smith goes by Top Dog and covers high school sports. He says the Cathedral students he works with are also trying to make sense of this.
I want to say that I respect the man and his decision. But I also have kids in our community at Cathedral that come home and ask their parents why this black man is calling them racist. And these kids are hurting over at Cathedral too.
KPBS reached out to Cathedral High School officials but did not hear back. The pain expressed at the meeting was palpable. Many participants shared stories of the double standards schools in the Southeast, like Lincoln High, which is predominantly Latino, Black, and low income, feel playing against private North County schools like Cathedral High. Jeff Harper Harris is the Lincoln basketball coach who helped start this community forum. He says the conversation goes far beyond 2 high schools and a football game.
It's not just a Lincoln Cathedral issue. That's the problem. It's a whole county issue. South of 8 versus north of 8 has been a major issue.
So while the Friday night lights won't be shining tomorrow, this all-important conversation will continue because this is about more than just football. Christina Kim, KPBS News.
Another story from Christina Kim was among our most popular this week. It's all about the skyrocketing rents in San Diego and who is paying the most. Christina dives into a recent national report that shows this is the worst city in the country for Black renters. You can stream that anytime on the KPBS YouTube page. It's been a couple of weeks since a small plane crashed into a neighborhood in Santee, killing 2 people. As John Carroll reports, the community hasn't forgotten about those who survived and still need help to recover.
At the Wendy's on Mission Gorge Road in Santee, big crowds on this Tuesday, many of them here for more than just the food.
So anything I could do to help, that's why I'm here.
Santee resident Jackie Brown heard about a fundraiser happening here, money being raised for the two families impacted by the October 11th crash. Maria and Phil Morris lived in this house on the corner. Neighbors pulled them to safety. They're still in the hospital recovering. The other family, Cody and Courtney Campbell, who weren't home at the time of the crash, they spent part of their morning at this Wendy's, where all proceeds, not just profit, is being donated to the two families.
And there's no words to describe this kind of support. Thank you 1,000 times, doesn't even come close.
Coming up with this on their own here, like Cody said, it leaves you kind of speechless.
We really wanted to step up and help our neighbors out.
Brian Sponberg's father owns all the Wendy's restaurants in the San Diego area. He says he got a call from the general manager of this one shortly after the crash, wondering how they could help. That led to this fundraiser. It started at 6:30 this morning when the restaurant opened. It will end at 10 tonight when it closes.
We got to pay the taxes on the purchases, but other than that, 100% will go to the two families.
This act of generosity comes on the same day the NTSB released its initial findings on the crash. The NTSB report is preliminary, but it does give us a window into what was going on just moments before the crash. It makes it clear that the pilot was off course and flying way too low. A transcript of the back and forth between the pilot, Dr. Sugata Das, and an air traffic controller shows the controller ordering a course correction just after 12:09. Over the next several minutes, the controller continues to order course and altitude corrections until finally at about 12:13, he again tells Das he's at the wrong altitude and orders him to climb immediately. Less than 2 minutes later, the plane slammed into the homes at Jeremy and Greencastle Streets. Now, memorials mark the place where this tragedy happened, one to the UPS driver, Steve Kruger, another to the Morris's dog, Roxy, who didn't survive. Back at the Wendy's, the lines inside and out were only growing. Cody and Courtney Campbell told me they had to go look at a rental home, a place to stay while their home is rebuilt. They do have insurance, but it won't cover everything. Courtney says seeing all these people here reassures her they chose the right place to live.
We grew up here, but we decided to stay here for a reason. And this community and everything that they're doing to help support us, it just reminds us, that we made the right call.
The support of a community, a silver lining to the unimaginable tragedy of losing one's home. John Carroll, KPBS News.
A big change is coming to the Padres, and they're expected to make it official in the days ahead. MLB and others are reporting that the team will hire Bob Melvin, the longtime manager of the Oakland A's. The Padres also hired a new pitching coach this week. Coming soon on KPBS, a story about the innovators of skate culture that's helped define San Diego. Skate SD is all about how it happened and where the sport is going. Here's the trailer.
In the early days when I really fell in love with skateboarding, it wasn't a career choice. It was more you did it because you loved it.
I don't think skateboarding was really on anybody's radar in San Diego, other than people that wanted to skate.
That's where it happened. That was the epicenter of skateboarding.
Well, skateboarding has come a long way, and it's easy to forget how important San Diego's contributions were to the future of skateboarding.
It's part of the fresh KPBS content coming in November. Skate SD premieres November 18th at 8 o'clock. That's a Thursday night right here on KPBS. And speaking of things that are uniquely San Diego, the zoo says it has a first for its condors. Some of its new chicks were hatched without the help of a male. As we mentioned earlier, this is one of our most popular stories this week at kpbs.org. Here's KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson.
Testing revealed 2 young condors reared by 2 separate mothers had only one parent. Their eggs were not fertilized by male sperm. Asexual reproduction was a key plot element in the 1993 movie Jurassic Park, as actor Jeff Goldblum pointed out.
I'm simply saying that life finds a way.
It hit us in the face. We weren't looking for it. We didn't expect it.
Genetic testing of the captive and wild population of California condors is a regular occurrence as researchers work to maintain genetic diversity. The species almost went extinct 30 years ago. The genomes of the mothers and offspring are the same, confirming the findings.
It happened twice, when the population was small. Will it happen again when the population gets bigger? I think that's an important question.
These are the first known cases of reproduction without fertilization in California condors. It's called parthenogenesis, and it's the first time genetic testing has confirmed the phenomenon. The development is also unique because there were fertile males present, but the asexual reproduction happened anyway.
Knowing that this is not like a random individual we found, this is two individuals from two separate families, so that were able to be generated using parthenogenesis, we might think that this is not as uncommon as we thought before.
The California condor is the largest flying bird in the world, with wingspans that can reach 9 feet. The population shrank to 22 birds in the 1980s. There are now more than 500 living condors, both in captivity and flying free. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
If you came face to face with a rattlesnake on your property, what would you do? Who would you call? A Poway man wants his community to call him if, or more likely when, they find a rattlesnake on their property. But as I found out, relocating live rattlesnakes is not quite as simple or legal as some might think.
Part of the perks I like about being a handyman is that you work in different locations every day.
Whether it's painting, drywall, or carpentry, Poway handyman Patrick Brady does it all. But he's also known as someone else.
Morning, this is Pat.
To the residents in his community, he is Trapper Pat. And they've been relying on him to do what most people would not.
Make sure there's not one in there.
Catch rattlesnakes.
How you doing? Once everybody found out about it, everybody seemed to have the word Trapper Pat on the tip of their tongues all the time. I would go places and, hey, Trapper Pat.
He answers the calls day or night and prides himself on being where he's needed in a matter of minutes, all free of charge.
I have to tell myself all the time, it's today the day you're going to get bit. And I tell myself, no, I'm not getting bit today. I'm not going to put myself in a position that I'm going to get bitten. Did you want to check for some more?
But Brady doesn't believe rattlesnakes should be killed, preferring to relocate them nearby.
I don't want to kill something that's alive. I don't want to take its life just because of what it is. It's here for a purpose. He has a right to be here.
Stories of his brave endeavors echoed their way up to state government. In a letter, Assemblymember Brian Mainshine thanked him for his work. Ironically, Brady used the official envelope to write down the address to his next emergency rattlesnake call. From the beginning of the year, Brady noticed something interesting. Every snake call resulted in the removal of the northern Pacific rattlesnake, and only babies. He called the California Department of Fish and Wildlife to share his data. A lieutenant called him back, and that, he says, is when everything changed.
I said, Mr. Brady, you need to cease and stop what you're doing right now because, you're not qualified to be doing what you're doing, and there's rules and regulations. You're breaking laws in California.
Fearing legal trouble, Brady stopped posting his stories on Nextdoor and social media. He took down his website and asked the community not to draw attention to him.
So there was a lot of things going on that suddenly came to a halt. And I felt bad because I felt like I was letting the public down.
So what are the laws when it comes to rattlesnakes? To begin with, it's perfectly legal to kill any rattlesnake found on your property.
No license, no permit, no authorization, nothing. Hit him with the flat part of the shovel, and that's going to do the job.
Captain Patrick Foy from the Department of Fish and Wildlife says when it comes to moving snakes in order to let them go, the law gets a little gray.
They never really accounted for the person who might think, I don't want to kill the rattlesnake, I want to remove it and take it someplace else and let it go. So that was never really clearly made apparent in the regulation, in the legislation. So it's now here we are today. Now we're having a different conversation.
California Fish and Game stipulates you can take up to 2 live rattlesnakes per day with no license required. In order to release any captured snakes, you need to have the department's written approval. In most cases, this means applying for a scientific collection permit, not a necessarily swift and easy process.
Yeah, if I could have rewritten that law, I probably would have tweaked it a little bit to make some changes to accommodate that type of request.
Captain Foy says there is something else to consider.
I would not call an unlicensed, unbonded, uninsured person to my house to remove a rattlesnake. Because if that person gets bit, you're going to own it. That's my formal advice. and my informal, my wink, wink, nod, nod, don't do it.
But the options are few and almost always mean destroying the snake. Some pest control companies charge hundreds of dollars to answer rattlesnake calls, unaffordable for many.
They do charge high fees, but they are paying for that insurance. They are paying for that training.
We prioritize rattlesnake calls as a priority 1 for us.
Chief Bill Ganley says the San Diego Humane Society answered almost 1,000 rattlesnake calls in the past 6 months, spread over 13 cities. Their team is trained to catch and release nearby.
So it goes to the top of our triage, and we respond within half an hour.
Considering the volume of rattlesnake calls in the county, he considers Brady to be an ally.
He responds quickly. Every time I've seen it on Nextdoor, people say, yeah, he was right here and he took care of it. And I believe he's an advocate of, humanely handling and, releasing the snake. That's a good thing in our book.
Pat Brady's case has sparked internal discussion within the Department of Fish and Wildlife. They told KPBS with the special permit, there could be a path for him to continue, which might include working closely with them to find suitable places for release. How easy that path is still remains to be seen.
Doing a good thing, it is doing a good thing for the community.
The Department of Fish and Wildlife also told KPBS because of this story, it is considering implementing changes in California code to make it easier for those who wish to relocate rattlesnakes. We hope that you enjoyed this look at KPBS News this week. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Thank you so much for joining us.